If you are in your late 20s to late 30s, you should make every effort to have chosen and settled into your career track by the age of 40. Now, I'm not saying you can't make changes in your 40s, but it's harder. Besides, you want to be in place because for most people, their 40s is their highest earning decade, and only because many people don't work their entire 50s. Hello again. Welcome to The Ruthless Truth. I am your host, Truth Davis. In this forum, I share opinions, thoughts, truths on a wide variety of topics based on what I believe to be a unique life experience. You can read the details of that in the notes or the bio. My intent is to share stories and experiences and hopefully provide you some life and career lessons that will help you on your life journey. Please follow me on Instagram at TruthDavis5, subscribe to the YouTube channel Ruthless Truth, and there's also a Facebook page, Ruthless Truth. General format, I'll share some initial commentary or thoughts on current news. Then I'll pick one topic and go a little deeper, which will be today's truth. And then I like to finish with an American history fun fact. Okay, so the war with Iran rages on. I don't really have a lot to say except for a couple of thoughts. It appears there was no plan, no clear objectives, and most importantly, a massive underestimation of the will of the Iranian regime and people. The administration here was probably feeling confident given the success and precision in removing Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro. Well, Iran is not Venezuela. And here's the thing we all need to understand. While victory for the United States is complicated and somewhat unclear, victory for Iran is quite simple. Just resist. As long as Iran is able to survive, all the pressure in the world, literally the world, is on the U.S. I said it 2 weeks ago. Removing the leader of a country is the easy part. The real work is what happens next, which requires planning, strategy, coordination, and execution. And as to coordination, a final thought on this issue. The president is now pleading with our allies to join in the conflict, for them to send in naval ships to help unblock the Strait of Hormuz. This is the waterway through which 20% of the global oil supply passes. But so far, most of our allies have declined. For example, the Germany defense minister stated, quote, "This is not our war. We didn't start it. There will be no participation militarily." I mean, are we surprised? The president spent all of last year mocking, tariffing, threatening our European allies, telling them that they would be nothing without the U.S. and we didn't need anything from them. And now that we have more of a problem than we expected, we're asking for their help? Good luck with that. Okay, how about some really good news? The United States is experiencing a significant decrease in crime all across the country. And the homicide rate is projected to reach its lowest point since 1900. That's over 125 years ago. And of the 58 major cities the FBI tracks for crime, only 3 have seen an increase in homicide. And those 3 are Honolulu and the Texas cities of Austin and El Paso. Again, great news, but why? Why is crime decreasing so dramatically? Well, there are several factors, some predictable and some a little bit surprising. First, we've seen a significant investment in law enforcement efforts, leading to more patrolling, more stops, more prosecution, and as a result, more incarcerations. There's also been an investment in support services. Specifically, there has been an influx of billions of dollars of pandemic aid that resulted in 1 million new local jobs. And these jobs are local police, teachers, counselors, and clinicians that work with the young people who are at the highest risk for violence or victimization. Okay, now those make sense. Now to a couple of surprising factors. Young people are consuming alcohol far less than previous generations. And crime is committed by young people who are often under the influence. So when you have more sober people, there's less crime. And then the most surprising factor to me, young people are spending more time alone. You know, often violent crime is committed in groups or by gangs. There's a degree of mob mentality that emboldens people to commit crimes they wouldn't perpetuate usually if they were alone. So, with increased isolation, fewer of these groups are forming, resulting in less criminal behavior. Now, there's a very old adage that says, success has many fathers, but failure is an orphan. Well, given this, you can expect many groups and organizations and politicians to claim success for the crime improvement, including the White House, local and state politicians, police chiefs, and more. Now, it'll be difficult to accurately assign credit. And you know what? I really don't care that much. I'm just glad to see our communities becoming safer. Hopefully, we can continue to improve on the positive trends. Okay, last news item. The Academy Awards were held earlier this week. I just have a few thoughts on the awards. First, many of my predictions were on target. I expected Michael B. Jordan to be the only actor in Sinners to receive an award, and I projected that Sinners would win Best Original Screenplay. I did not expect Sinners to win Best Picture, and it did not. And I'm not too upset about that. What does upset me is the selection of the movie that did win Best Picture. One battle after another. I don't get this at all. So many people had told me it was a great movie, so I saw it a few weeks ago. And while I am a huge fan of Leonardo DiCaprio, as well as Sean Penn and Tiana Taylor, I didn't think it was that compelling a film. So much so that I watched it twice, thinking maybe I missed something that everyone else saw. No. While there were some strong individual performances, to me the problem was the story. To me it was just a 2-hour chase broken up into multiple scenes. Still, congratulations to all the winners. Okay, let's get to today's truth. Okay, today's truth. You know, when it comes to career planning and career paths, there's always been a degree of anxiety. Whether you are early in your career, in the middle, or nearing the end, people often wonder or question the decisions they've made or plan to make. And while this has always been the case, in this new, unknown AI environment, this type of anxiety is at an all-time high. Well, in today's truth, I'm going to address career anxiety for all ages and hopefully provide you with some knowledge and optimism to assist you in your career journey. I'll go in sequential order. So let's start with college. Okay, college choices are a stressful period in a young person's life. First, there's the 1 to 2 years of pressure trying to answer one question. So where are you going to go to school? And then once you get in, right behind that is, what are you going to major in? Now, before I get into this, let me say one thing. There are very few decisions in life that are permanent or irreversible. Now, obviously, a few decisions fall in this category, such as having children. But there aren't many others. So, regardless of where you are in your faith walk, in most cases, you can revisit or change decisions you've made. Okay, back to college and choosing a major. You know, as a child, then later as a teen, and well into adulthood, I've always been annoyed by the question of, so what are you going to do? Or what are you going to be? How could I possibly know the answer? And I'll use myself as an example. For undergraduate school, I attended Emory University in Atlanta. I felt some anxiety when I arrived because so many of my classmates had attended impressive private high schools or even independent boarding schools. Many of them had traveled extensively, including internationally, whereas I graduated from a public high school in Memphis, although a very good one, and at that point had only been on an airplane once. Additionally, in early conversation, there was an air of one-upmanship as students were trying to out-impress each other with their accomplishments, such as class rank or FAT scores. And then finally, I was one of only 28 black students in a total freshman class of 850 students. But you know what? After just a couple of weeks in this environment, my anxiety subsided. I reminded myself that, hey, I'd gotten in just as all of them had, and there was no reason to be intimidated. And with my confidence intact, I proceeded to change my major every semester for my first 2 years of college. I went from computer science to history to math to Spanish. I just kept looking for something that felt right. And I mean, felt right for me. In my junior year, I finally decided to major in business. Now, during this self-discovery, I had to just ignore my parents, who had very strong opinions of my major. My mom wanted me to be an engineer, while my dad wanted me to major in business. So from all of this, I learned 2 lessons that governed me for the rest of my life, and I think can apply to everyone. First, there's no way to know how long it will take to find your lane. Some people know early. I mean, I saw this often with doctors' kids who knew all of their lives that they wanted to go to medical school. But then some people don't discover the right place for themselves until their 30s. There's no right answer, but when you find it, you'll know it, okay? Second lesson, resist outside pressure from family and friends who are only more than happy to tell you what you should do and what career you should pursue. I'm not saying you should totally ignore them. I mean, if these are people that you know well and you trust them, they often can provide helpful perspective. But in the end, it's your life and it's your decision, and it's yours is the only opinion that really matters. Now, that said, you need to do research and self-education so that your decision is an informed one. Specifically, not all majors are created equal. I grew up with very little money as a child, and I was adamant that I did not want to struggle as an adult. Now, I chose to pursue a business degree because I discovered I just really enjoyed business. But I also knew that business majors have one of the highest employment rates among college majors. So, to put a finer point on it, here are the undergraduate majors with the highest employment rates: nursing science, engineers, finance and accounting, mathematics and statistics, okay? These majors find jobs. And while most industries will be impacted by AI to some extent, these skills and degrees will always be in high demand. Conversely, the majors with the lowest employment prospects are anthropology, computer engineering, which actually used to be in high demand, but now is adversely impacted by AI. And then the others are fine arts, architecture, and art history. Now, given this, I must admit, I'm somewhat unsympathetic when these graduates complain about not being able to find a job. What job did you expect to get when you chose this major? When I see students making these choices, I assume they've already made the decision to attend graduate school because they are not commercially attractive. But I guess my overall point to college students and those in their early 20s, you have time to figure it out. You know, try or research different industry or roles. While money is always a driver, it should not be the primary driver. I've always said that if you find something you enjoy, there's a way to make money doing it. You know, I always enjoyed watching TV and I enjoyed commercials. And I found a home and career in marketing, which turned out to be fairly lucrative. Okay, next group. People in their late 20s to late 30s. These are the critical years. You're still young in your career, so you have time to find the right lane, but you don't have a lot of time. That said, all options are still on the table for you. If you feel you're in a rut or think it's difficult to switch industries, you can always go to grad school. I just mentioned that college graduates with engineering degrees are most employable and receive the highest salaries coming out of college. But did you know engineers are the third most common major to apply to MBA school, trailing only business majors and economic majors? Why? Because engineers often find themselves pigeonholed and restricted by their career choice. If you're an engineer, the world sees you only as an engineer. And as their career progresses, many engineers grow interested in business and have aspirations of ascending to higher management. So they go get an MBA to break out of the engineer track and jump on the much broader track of business. And while the average med school graduate is 28 to 31 years old, there are many students who enter med school after turning 30. In fact, last year, the oldest first-year med school student in the country was 60. Now, I can't even imagine that. But even if you don't choose to go to grad school, you still can enter a new industry, even if it means taking a step back. You know, I have a really good friend who I first met at P&G. We were part of the same brand team. Now, generally, most brand or marketing team members are young people. They're in their 20s. David, however, had begun his career in sales and had reached the level of director. But he eventually realized that every senior executive at Procter & Gamble had come up through marketing. And if he had any aspirations to get to that executive level, he would need to switch to the marketing track. So he transferred from his director level position in sales to take the position of assistant brand manager, which is just one level above entry level, although his current compensation was intact. They kept him whole there. Now, at that time, he was in his early 30s and was now one of the oldest ABMs in the company, assistant brand managers. But he recognized the career path he wanted to pursue, and he made the changes he needed to make. And sometimes that's what it takes. And again, if you're in your late 20s to late 30s, you should make every effort to have chosen and settled into your career track by the age of 40. Now, I'm not saying you can't make changes in your 40s, but it's harder. It's harder. Besides, you want to be in place because for most people, their 40s is their highest earning decade, and only because many people don't work their entire 50s. Okay, final group, people age 40 and above. Now, this is a very interesting group because people in their early 40s are in a very different space compared to when they reach their late 40s. People in their early 40s are often just reaching the income level that allows them to really enjoy life. You know, often their kids are older and easier to travel with, so life is good. And relatively speaking, they still feel young in their career and see retirement many years away. This is often the most secure they have felt in their career. Unfortunately, this is mistaken thinking. This is the age people should be executing on a plan for retirement. Yes, it seems like it's a long way away, but it isn't that far away. And ageism is very real in the workplace. So that same worker who feels thriving and safe at age 41 might start freaking out at age 49. Your career progression may have stalled and you haven't advanced as far as you expected by this age. Or you may just be realizing you're behind on retirement savings. Or perhaps you're in an industry or role that ages out before 60. These folks are frightened by the prospect of having to look for a job in their mid-50s. And most unfortunately, time is no longer on your side. So, career anxiety peaks in the early 50s. So how can you mitigate it? Well, nothing mitigates like money. So when you reach your early 40s and start making good money, That's the time to start saving for your future. Build up an emergency cash fund equal to 12 months of living expenses. Make sure you're enrolled in your company-sponsored retirement plan. And if that's not an option, open your own IRA. You should also look to reduce or eliminate debt. Now, aside from money, you want to make sure you keep your skills sharp and marketable. It's not a bad idea to start looking for a new job or opportunity. If you land one, you immediately go from the long tenured veteran on your current job to the new guy with fresh ideas on the new job. An additional point, watch your weight. Stay active and fit. Weight ages you and could accelerate the perception that aging or losing a step, or that you're losing a step. I know it feels petty, but believe me, people, it is real. And finally, if you've always had the entrepreneurial spirit, it's never too late. Remember, Bernie Marcus founded Home Depot at age 50. Ray Kroc was 52 when he started McDonald's, and Colonel Sanders was 62 years old when he founded Kentucky Fried Chicken. Okay, to summarize, career anxiety exists at every level, beginning in college and extending up to retirement age. If you're under 40, you still have time to figure it out and decide what the right career track is for you. But by 40, while you may very well be in a good place, this is not the time for complacency. Start saving and planning for an exit, be it retirement or a career change. Going from age 40 to 50 is the fastest 10 years of your career. Be sure to make it the most productive. Okay, let's get to today's American history fun fact. Today's American history fun fact. You know, over the past 150 years, America has seen some families build incredible fortunes. I mean, in the late 19th century, there were the Rockefellers, Carnegies, and Vanderbilts, although not all of those families were able to maintain their wealth. Today, the richest family is the Walton family, whose combined fortunes exceed $400 billion. And all of this started with Sam Walton, who founded Walmart. The Waltons are actually the richest family in the world. Well, in today's American history fun fact, I'm going to tell you the story of the family that is currently the second richest family in the United States. Yet, you rarely hear anything about them. And you know what? That's just the way the family wants it. Okay, we'll start with Forrest Mars, who was born March 21st, 1904 in Wadena, Minnesota. He was raised by his maternal grandparents in Saskatchewan, Canada, after his parents divorced when he was just a child. Now, as an adult, Forrest reunited with his father, Frank Mars, who had founded the Mars Candy Company in 1911, then in 1920 incorporated the company as Mars Inc. But the business struggled. Then one day, Forrest was sitting at a soda fountain with his father, Frank, discussing their challenges with the business. And Forrest suggested his father develop a candy bar based on a chocolate malt milkshake. Well, Frank embraced the idea, and then by making use of a neglected Minnesota ingredient called nougat, he introduced the Milky Way bar in 1923. The new candy was advertised as chocolate malted milk in a candy bar, and it became the best-selling candy bar in the United States. Later, Forrest supervised development of Snickers in 1930. But despite this successful collaboration, Forrest and his father did not get along well. And in 1932, Forrest accepted a $50,000 buyout from his father, Frank, which would be equivalent to $1.1 million in today's money. The buyout also included the European rights to Milky Way. Forrest started a candy company in England and introduced the Mars bar, which was just a slight variation of the Milky Way bar. Also, in 1934, he purchased a company that specialized in canned pet food. And due to a lack of competition, Forrest took command of the British market with his Chappie canned food. Now, Frank Mars died in 1935, but the company ownership did not pass to Forrest, but rather to Frank's second wife, Ethel Mars, although operations of the company was led by her half-brother. So Forrest later returned to the United States and, with no reconciliation with his stepmother, started his own food business, the Food Products Manufacturing Company. There, he developed the Uncle Ben's rice line of business and Pedigree pet food. Now, during his time in England, Forrest observed soldiers eating Smarties, which was a chocolate candy with a hard candy shell that was put in place to prevent the chocolate from melting. Well, in the 1940s, Forrest Mars formed a partnership with Bruce Murray, who was the son of Hershey president William Murray. Together, they founded a confectionery company, M&M Inc., based on their last names, and in 1941 received a patent for their process for making M&Ms, which launched in September 1941. Initially, the candy had modest success, but then in 1949, the company introduced the tagline, "The milk chocolate that melts in your mouth, not in your hands." And from there, business boomed. Forrest, over time, gradually gained more control and ownership of his father's company, and in 1964 took over full ownership, merging Mars with his own company. The company continued to thrive, and in 1973, Forrest Mars Jr. assumed leadership and led the continued growth of Mars until he stepped down around 2000. Now, here's the unique thing about this company and family. Mars Inc. has always been 100% owned by the Mars family. It is the fourth largest privately held company in the country. The company is based in McLean, Virginia, and it's run out of an anonymous brown building near CIA headquarters. The headquarters is nicknamed the Kremlin. In addition to keeping the company private, the family was and is still notoriously secluded. Forrest Mars Sr. developed this culture of secrecy, and the family members were rarely, if ever, interviewed or even photographed. Even company leadership is a secret. Mars will only say that certain descendants of Frank Mars still occupy management position and refuses to reveal how many of them sit on the board. And when second generation boss Forrest Sr. died, age 95, Mars would not even confirm his death. But despite all this uniqueness and quirkiness, there's no denying that the Mars family has built and maintained one of the most successful businesses in U.S. history. Okay, that's all I have for you today on The Ruthless Truth. Thank you so much for listening. Again, follow me on Instagram at TruthDavis5, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Ruthless Truth, and there's also a Facebook page, Ruthless Truth. Thanks again, and I will talk to all of you soon.